Can Ryan Williams win the Heisman Trophy? He's considered in the top 10 according to ESPN. We're going to talk about the Bama wide receiver, the candidates for the Heisman Trophy, what Williams thought about Coach DeBoer, and why it was so important for Alabama to add Ryan Grubb when the season ended as the new offensive coordinator. Great to have you guys here on Cover Crimson, brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Dancing Rabbit Golf Course is the Augusta you can play. You can be like Scotty Scheffler out there on those greens. Multi-million-dollar course. We're going to talk about Alabama football, so let's get this thing going. All right, there he is. Clint Lamb, Mick Gillispie, Cover Crimson. We talk Alabama football on a daily basis. And Clint, Chris Lowe, our buddy Chris Lowe, throws a little bit of a list out there on ESPN. Top 10 preseason early candidates for the Heisman. Not saying Ryan Williams is a favorite, but when your name is in that top 10 at number 10, tells you that people think that there's a chance for you.
Yeah, I mean, he checks in at number 10, but he's one of only 3 non-quarterbacks included on the 10-man list, right? So you got Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver for Ohio State, checking in at number 3. You got Jeremiah Love, the running back for Notre Dame, I think checking in at number 8. And then you have Ryan Williams sitting there at number 10. And it speaks volumes, because really when you go back and look, dating back to the year 2000, 20 of the 25 Heisman Trophy winners have been quarterbacks. Like, it used to be a running backs award prior to the year 2000, but really that's where it started to shift quite a bit, maybe in the 90s a little bit. But then 20 out of 25, that's 80%. And then 3 out of the 25 have been running backs. And then the other 2, you can say Devontae Smith, a true receiver. And then you've got Travis Hunter, kind of a do it all, both sides of the football, offense, defense, playmaker, who won it this past season. But, obviously it still leans heavily in the quarterback's favor. I just don't think this past season any quarterback was good enough or was on a team that was good enough to kind of position them to win it over Travis Hunter or Genty. So I do think it's interesting, like in Ron Williams' favor, one of the arguments, obviously the excitement level that he brings to the table, the wow plays. I mean, despite the fact that he didn't break 1,000 yards this past season, just the timing of a lot of his plays and the fact that he's very exciting, that helps. But also 3 of the last 4 non-quarterbacks to win the Heisman have been from Alabama. So Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, Devontae Smith. Prior to this past season with Travis Hunter, the last 3 non-quarterbacks were all from Alabama. So skill players, at least since the Nick Saban era, they've been able to get themselves in the conversation. Doesn't mean he'll necessarily win it. But, I think FanDuel's got him at plus 3,500, which I think ranks at number 17. But, do you think he can actually win the Heisman, though, Mick?
Well, look, Devontae Smith won one. But what was that, like the first true wide receiver to win one? You see guys that are like Travis Hunter that do both or return kicks or whatever. Smitty won it. I don't know if Ryan Williams can win one just because of his position. He's going to have to obviously get better at their intermediate stuff. I mean, he makes the wow plays, but you got to make the non-wow plays. You can't, there were too many misses last year. Towards the middle of the season. He also had the most electrifying catch in football taken away by stupid officials. So don't discount that. It's doing that stuff, but then incorporating the other stuff too. Taking the 2-yard bubble 70 yards to the house. You know what I mean? Like getting out there and blocking, and not afraid to help somebody else. I think he can do all of those things. He's got the tough part of it naturally figured out because he's got this amazing ability to catch the ball. But, as far as winning a Heisman, it would have to be, it'd have to be a spectacular year for him and Alabama.
Yeah, it would definitely need to be a spectacular year for Alabama. Like Ty Simpson, according to the same FanDuel odds. He's sitting at plus 5,000, which ties for 22nd. I almost feel like Ryan Williams, Ty Simpson would have a better chance of winning than Ryan Williams because of all the other weapons in Alabama's offense.
Right.
From a talent standpoint, and what Ryan Williams is as a receiver compared to what Ty Simpson is as a quarterback, there's really not a comparison. Like, obviously, Ryan Williams is a potentially generational talent. Just so happens that you got another one up there in Columbus in Jeremiah Smith. But that's what I worry about. Like, when Devontae Smith won it, people forget the beginning of that season, Jalen Waddle was going off. And really, he was like that dynamite receiver for Alabama. Obviously, Devontae Smith was providing great complementary numbers and was going to be a great player in his own right. Like, really wasn't a 1 and 2. It was like a 1A, 1B. But when Jalen Waddle went down, that cleared the path. You still had John Mechie, but that really allowed Alabama, Steve Sarkisian, Mac Jones to feature Devontae Smith a lot more, which cleared the path. Ryan Williams will clearly be the alpha, in my opinion, in Alabama's offense. Will he be afforded those opportunities like Devontae Smith was when you've got Isaiah Horton, you've got Jeremy Bernard? We talk a lot about these other guys who are going to be depth pieces, rotational pieces, potentially a big part of the offense. Rico Scott, Latsier Brooks, maybe a Jalen Hill. You're going to have Josh Cuevas catching passes at tight end. And, obviously you're not – I do think it's going to be a pass-centric offense, but I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be like a 70-30 split or a 75-25 split. I still think there's some balance there. So I just don't know if there's going to be enough opportunities. But when you actually watch him, and one of the reasons is like you talked about, he already had the difficult part down. Like, he's already a very exciting player to watch. More of the routine stuff, like there's some concentration drops at times. There's some, small nuanced things that you would fully expect him to get better year 1 to year 2. But then once you get better on that front, you've also got like the complimentary highlight reel type of stuff that's really going to grab the attention of a lot of these voters. And I do think that, Ryan Williams brings that, which really helps his chances.
Yeah. Look, I do too. And we'll see. I think he's motivated too. I love that about him. Like, some guys get their NIL checks and they think it's the end. It's, for Ryan Williams, it feels like, hey, this is just kind of part of it, and
Sure.
He's a special talent, and I would love to see him make a push for the Heisman because that would mean Bama did really well. Hey, guys, Rowback, Father's Day's coming up. Room 20% off your first order, rowback.com. I love their gear. They sent us a box of stuff, and I'm thinking I may have to get on there and see what's going on for Father's Day. I got the crab shirt last year, but they have all kind of cool stuff. So check it out. Very, very cool logo with a dog. All of us like labs. And then on top of that, the clothes are great. So we appreciate them for being a part of our channel. 20% off. All right. So we're talking about Ryan Williams buying into DeBoer. You got some comments that you wanted to talk about. I'm interested in hearing this because in a way it felt like DeBoer was a grandfather last year. You know how your parents don't let you get away with a whole lot, but your grandparents do, and it kind of felt a little bit like that last year with DeBoer.
It did, especially from an outsider's perspective, not knowing what all was going on behind the scenes. It definitely felt that way, especially relative to Nick Saban and the way he operated. So with this all-in documentary that was aired on the SEC network last night, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to see it yet. We'll react more after I've had that opportunity. But one quote from Ron Williams really stood out to me, and I wanted to talk about it. And that was, he was asked about Kalen DeBoer, and he said, when Coach DeBoer first got here, it was kind of a culture shock. Just listening to the other guys, some people weren't bought into Coach DeBoer yet. Now that we're in year 2, basically everyone that's here, they're bought into Coach DeBoer and the rest of the coaching staff and everything that we do. This isn't an overly shocking statement from Ron Williams. I think we can both agree, because it's like you've been under such a strict thumb in Nick Saban
Right.
that when you move to anybody else, there's going to be like, relative. It's like, okay, you kind of test what can we get away with here, because you've been used to not. I mean, there's so many rules, so many things that you couldn't do. Um, and it just with Kalen DeBoer's personality, especially without Ryan Grubb, which we'll talk about more in just a second. But without him there, it was like maybe Kalen DeBoer kind of struggled as far as making that transition. But the thing about it is while you can criticize his ability to transition, that transition has now happened. And so everywhere he's been able to establish his culture. He's gotten guys to buy into him and the way he operates and does things. So while we maybe miscalculated a little bit as far as, it would be kind of more of a seamless transition, and it wasn't. Now that we're kind of past that, or they're kind of past that, I think I think everybody's buying in the way they're supposed to. Would you agree or disagree?
I feel like that too. I hope so, because the discipline I've said this a million times, but the discipline towards the end of the season was just not good enough. But the thing that I can tell you this about Kalen DeBoer, and you look at his track record, is that he's had the ability to go from year one to year two and make a big upgrade. Fresno State, Washington, the job that he had in, what was it, Iowa or wherever, South Dakota, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. All those places, he figured it out. And I can remember in one of his interviews, he was like, when it's South Dakota, right? Like Sioux Falls,
Sioux
South Dakota.
Falls. Sioux
Yeah,
Falls.
and he's like, we get our butts kicked in one of the title games, and he gets killed, and the other coach says to him, like, hey, you're not as bad as the score. Like, basically, just this was our game or whatever. And he said he left, and he's like, God, if they're that much better than us. But then he figured out, and they won a bunch of those championships. So he is resilient in that aspect, and he is a winner. He's got a winner's personality. He's got a great work ethic. The culture was definitely different, and the players took advantage of the fact that they didn't have someone standing over their shoulder like with Coach Saban. And I love when I have Shank on one of my shows, or we talk to Ryan Anderson or Jay Coker, and they talk about Saban, the Saban shadow when you're out at practice and something goes, he sees you messing up, and then all of a sudden you turn around and there he is, but you can feel him. That's not the way it is now. Or at least with DeBoer. So it's different motivation for these guys. Like, they have to do it themselves. They have to be self-motivated. So I'm bought in on Coach DeBoer. I really am. I do like him a lot. And I think that in the long run, with Ryan Grubb back, and I know that's our next topic, that things are going to be continue to get better. Now, I do want to say this, guys. Pearl River Resort brings the show to you every day. Dancing Rabbit Golf Course is the Augusta you can play. You don't have to have a membership. And it is really a fantastic place. Multi-million-dollar facility. It's one of the most beautiful, supreme golf courses in the entire South. Find out for yourself. Hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours and change from Birmingham, and you don't have to have a membership. And there's a Silver Star and Goldman Casino, part of that facility as well. The Timeout Sports Lounge, which is a Vegas style sports book. The water park, Geyser Falls. So many things going on over there. Find out for yourself at Pearl River. The importance of Ryan Grubb, Clint, very important.
That exactly, and that fits right into what we're talking about with Kalen DeBoer. Here's the thing: I don't think Ryan Grubb had to come back for Kalen DeBoer to be a better version of himself in 2025 relative to 2024. Like, that transition was happening regardless. What I will say is I think it makes it that much easier and that much better, because Grubb is kind of, we talk a lot about the good cop, bad cop analogy, and how Grubb fits into that. I think that's really going to be beneficial for Alabama. But I also think that really, Grubb's importance, not only is it important from a discipline standpoint, but also the standpoint of, calling plays, what he gets out of his quarterbacks, what he, the emphasis that he puts on quality offensive line play, and his background with that. Like, I think it's just the combination of factors. And what I don't want to happen is for Alabama fans to get super anxious or worried and say, okay, if he's such a critical piece, what happens if he leaves after a year or after 2 years? Like, is Alabama going to fall off? I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I'm just saying why you've got him. It's kind of like, you've got when you put the minds of Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer together, you've got a play caller or an offense that's going to operate in a similar fashion or a similar manner to, when Lane Kiffin was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, when Steve Sarkisian was the offensive coordinator. You've got elite offensive minds who are kind of operating the day-to-day aspects of it. So you can feel good about that side of the football as they kind of enter this new era. They're still, the defense is going to be much improved as well. It's still going to be a very tough defense, but this is going to be an offense-driven team, in my opinion. And, I think that the Ryan Grubb coming back, I don't think people talk about that enough. They have, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying no one's covered it, but when we talk about national championship implications and just things that have happened, and you've got this guy going here and, this guy coming back or whatever, the addition of Ryan Grubb at offensive coordinator on top of having a play caller quarterback relationship that's going to mirror a lot more of what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want to do, on top of the improvements at wide receiver, on top of the expected improvements with the offensive line, like just as inconsistent as the offense was in 2024, I expect massive leaps in 2025, and I think it's going to make a world of difference for Alabama.
And I feel the same way. Look, I feel like the addition of Ryan Grubb is one of the biggest additions to any coaching staff in the country last year.
Probably the biggest.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you want to make the argument for Oklahoma with their offense coordinator from Washington State who went with John Mateer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. The package deal. But no, I'm with you. I mean, Grubb, it's not just, and this isn't a shot at Nick Sheridan. It just isn't. Like, this isn't about Nick. I mean, I thought Nick was progressing as an offensive coach, and, I think I'm glad he stayed, and I'm sure for him it was a little bit of humble pie to have to kind of take a step back in that role. But we're glad to have him, and we're lucky to have him. But Grubb's a difference maker, and he knows that. That's probably why he stayed. I mean, you wouldn't take that, and I'm not calling it a demotion, but you wouldn't take that if you felt like the guy that was coming in, wasn't any good. But if somebody's really good, if they're better than you and you know it, you're fine with that, because you're like, hey, I'm going to learn from this. I'll have another opportunity. I'm paid, like I'm going to figure out how to just with the experience that I have last year to help the team win. But the Grubb personality is the thing that we needed too. Not just the track record of calling plays and having an attacking offense, but it's also that balance for Kalen DeBoer. I mean, this is his right-hand man. These guys are almost like head coach and, head coach A. And I'm glad Grubb's here, and I hope he loves Tuscaloosa. I hope it's somewhere that he wants to be for a long time, or at least until he becomes his own head coach. And I'm sure that's probably what he's going to do next. I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator in the league. You got to be the man. And I think that's where the money is. So if Tuscaloosa makes him happy, Alabama makes him happy, and we have him for 2-3 seasons, I'd be fine with me.
Well, the Nick Sheridan side of things is very interesting because, you get the continuity factor of you still got your offensive coordinator from last year on staff. He's still going to be working closely with your quarterbacks. But, like Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, look at what they kind of have done at a lot of these stops. Look at what they did at Washington, kind of known as quarterback developers, sort of known as offensive line developers. Some people will say working in unison with Scott Huff certainly helped that, but I don't think Scott Huff is anything special relative to a Coach Cap, where it's more of putting a guy like Coach Cap or Coach Huff along with someone like Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer that really makes the magic happen. You look at Jamarcus Shepard and what he did at Washington, wide receiver development. So 3 very critical positions in this offense: wide receiver, quarterback, offensive line. You got to feel good about that. Brian Ellis is a good tight ends coach. I think they are going to get good play out of that position. Obviously, Robert Gillispie, phenomenal recruiter, good coach, going to have some talent in that running back room. You expect them to also be kind of what they need to be in order to kind of be a complementary piece. But like Nick Sheridan and just getting him back, like he's now had stints as an offensive coordinator. 1 year at Bama, he had the 1 year, I think, at Indiana, and it's like it is possible that he takes a step back for a year or two, and he's groomed to be the next offensive coordinator. And we know Kalen DeBoer wants to have people that he's familiar with, that he trusts, that he knows he works well with, they can get the job done together. So maybe Nick Sheridan can take this opportunity to learn under Grubb through the lens of not being a tight ends coach like he was at Washington, but being a quarterbacks coach. So he's working very closely with him. And also, it's kind of like, hey, bring him under your wing, show him the nuances of being a play caller, help him on that front. Like, I just think it could end up being a very beneficial, both short-term and long-term situation for the way that this is potentially going to play out in Tuscaloosa. And I think that when you talk about the offensive side, I think that's really going to help.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Ryan Williams ties in with this Ryan Grubb offense. Is he going to be better? Can they find more ways to get him the ball? How creative are they with this offense? Because what would help Ryan Williams have a real chance at the Heisman is the offense uses different targets, and you can't really key in on him because you're like, okay, well, they'll get us with Horton, or they're going to get us with Bernard, or they're going to get us with Adams, or they're going to get us with Brooks, or they're going to, whoever it is. And if they spread the ball out, like Alabama did in the first half of that Georgia game, where you just didn't know where the damn ball was going to be. If they can attack like that, and all of a sudden you forget about Ryan Williams, that's when you're going to get beaten.
Well, I mean, just look at the wide receiver room. Like, as good as Jerry Jeudy was at Alabama, he was in a stacked wide receiver room. That was, now granted, it's a different room. I mean, when you got 4 first-round draft picks, future first-round draft picks in the same room, that's different than what Alabama's got right now. But, it was a really good wide receiver room. So as successful as he was and as dominant as everybody said that he was, I mean, this was a guy that after his next to final season at Alabama, people were talking about him potentially being the number 1 overall pick. And he actually ended up being the lowest drafted of Alabama's 4 receivers. Out of those 4 first-round picks, he was the lowest drafted. So that's kind of, we talk about Ryan Williams, and he can be respected. Like, you looked at Jeudy, and it was clear that he was one of the best receivers in college football. He was in the conversation for a lot of, postseason awards. I guarantee you Ryan Williams will be in those conversations. One of the best receivers, universally accepted as one of the best. But will that lead to Heisman results? I mean, I think, it's possible he could end up in New York, and maybe that's the better question. Like, does Ryan Williams end up in New York? I think that's very realistic. I think you might have a couple of quarterbacks. You might have a running back, maybe a Jeremiah Love, but, maybe Jeremiah Smith's there. Maybe it's Ryan Williams. I don't know how it's going to look, but winning the Heisman, I don't think I would go that far right now. But that does not mean that I don't think that Ryan Williams isn't going to be one of the best, not only wide receivers, but one of the best offensive players and really one of the best players in all of college football this season.
Exciting stuff. Clint, we are available on Apple, Spotify. People want to download the show. We'd love that. Put it on automatic download. We try to put content out for you guys at least once a day, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times during the season. But all of that available at the Cover Crimson, what do we call it? Downloads? Podcast?
Yeah. You can go to Spotify or Apple Podcast, really wherever you listen to your podcast. You got to search Cover Crimson Podcast Network. I don't know if the Cover Crimson channel is still up. If it is, that's not the right one. We shifted. We moved all that stuff to where it's under the Cover Crimson Podcast Network, where you get all of the latest, whether it be us here with Cover Crimson, whether it be you and Coker with Elephant in the Room, Jimmy and myself, when we do stuff together, all of that's going to end up on there. Easy to consume content. We get it out unless we're going live. We pretty much get it out at the exact same time that we're putting the videos up here. So if that's how you like to consume your content, we are trying to grow things over there. Leave us a 5-star review. Let us know that you heard it on here and you went over there, you hit the download button, and we very much will appreciate any and all of that, because we're trying to grow this thing. And the more you guys help us grow it, the better off we're going to be, the better off this channel is going to be.
Yeah, no doubt. You can always catch us on covercrimson.com as well, working on building that up. We appreciate all you guys. We love it when you guys get on there and get in the message board. Clint's constantly throwing up content over there, right, Clint?
Yeah. We now we're getting into the player rankings. That's going to be a lot of fun. I normally do anywhere from 3 to 4 players per day. We're going to be throwing the freshmen in there, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but now that we've gotten an idea of where some of these freshmen are as far as spring is concerned, it's still some projecting because you haven't seen it on Saturdays, but a lot of it's projecting anyways. So that's going to be fun because I think people might be surprised at just how high some of these freshmen check in. So be on the lookout for that, and definitely go subscribe at covercrimson.com.
All right. Well, guys, again, we appreciate all of you for hanging with us. Our show is presented by Pearl River over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Azaleas, the Oaks, 2 awesome golf courses at Dancing Rabbit, which is honestly, it really is the Augusta you can play. Just amazing golf courses, a multi-million-dollar facility. But over there, they got a ton of stuff. If you're in the slots, they have, between Silver Star and Golden Moon, they have the best slots that are out there. They've really invested in it. You walk in, I mean, they got all the machines you're looking for, and it's a lot of fun. Everything there that you need, really, to have a great time. But the Timeout Sports Lounge, you can be like me at the Preakness. Grocer, looks like it's going to be 19-1, riding into a big payday, and then here comes journalism. I had journalism too. I told you guys that yesterday, but it was exciting. But it was like watching those horses come down the stretch. But I love it. Whether it's NASCAR or either this or that, it's just fun to go over there and hang out. It's an hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours and change from Birmingham. That's Pearl River Resort.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.